Chapter 8: Shadows Among the Trees. The dusk settled over the village like a heavy, suffocating blanket, the last rays of sunlight bleeding out beyond the twisted silhouettes of the Bone Orchard's outer trees. Elara stood at the edge of the orchard, her sharp green eyes scanning the ghostly garden that had become both a beacon of hope and a prison of despair. The bone-white fruit hung heavy from the gnarled branches, glowing faintly in the dimming light, casting pale shadows that danced like restless spirits. A cold wind stirred, sending whispers through the leaves, whispers that felt like the breaths of forgotten memories, secrets just beyond reach. Kaelen was restless. Since his return, every day had been a fragile truce between the man she loved and the shadow that gnawed at him from within. Tonight, his torment seemed to surge with a furious clarity. Elara had found him earlier that evening in the small clearing near the village edge, his pale skin almost luminescent under the moonlight, eyes hollow but flickering with an unnatural light. His breath came in short, ragged bursts as he clutched his temples, muttering fragments of forgotten phrases and cryptic riddles that chilled her to the bone. Elara, the orchard, it's not just a place. It's a hunger, a tide pulling me under. I'm losing myself. She reached out, her hands trembling as she brushed a stray lock of dark hair from his brow. I'm here, Kaelen. Fight it with me. But even as she's curling beneath his skin like ink spreading through water, the faint scars that glowed softly with orchard magic pulsed erratically, a cool reminder of the unnatural pact she had made. Meanwhile, the village's unease grew like wildfire. Joran, stoic and steadfast as always, had become her anchor, yet even he could not shield her from the rising tide of fear that gripped their neighbors. In the smoky warmth of the forge, where soot-streaked hands shaped iron and flames crackled, Joran faced the murmuring crowd. Faces etched with suspicion and dread turned toward him as they whispered about the orchard's increasing malevolence. The dead should stay dead, a voice hissed from the shadows. That place is cursed. It steals more than memories. It steals souls. Joran's warm brown eyes scanned the restless crowd, his voice low but firm. Elara is one of us. We must stand together, not let fear tear us apart. But the villagers' eyes held something older, deeper, a primal terror of the unknown, of the unnatural balance being tipped. Their whispered warnings nod at Elara's resolve, reminding her of the price she was already paying. One night, driven by a mixture of dread and determination, Elara returned to the orchard alone. The moon hung low, casting silver light that made the bone-white fruit almost glow with an otherworldly radiance. The orchard spirit revealed itself in a terrifying form, a shifting mass of twisted branches intertwined with glowing fruit and whispering shadows. Its presence was both awe-inspiring and bone-chilling, as if the very essence of death and memory had taken shape to confront her. The ground beneath her pulsed with eerie light, and spectral tendrils reached out, curling around her like the fingers of forgotten souls. The orchard spirit's voice was 1,000 whispered echoes, promising power and warning of the consequences. You cannot hold back the tide, Elara. To keep him is to feed the orchard's hunger. Her heart pounded against her ribs. The love that had driven her to this place now threatened to consume her entirely. Yet beneath the fear, a fierce resolve burned. She would face whatever darkness awaited, for Kaelen, for herself, for the fragile hope that still flickered in the shadows. The night ended with a whispered row beneath the bone-white boughs. Elara would fight, not just against the orchard spirit, but against the creeping despair threatening to swallow them all. The orchard's shadows were growing longer, but so too was her determination. The battle for Kaelen's soul, and her own, was only just beginning. As dawn crept over the horizon, the village stirred uneasily, the weight of unseen threats pressing down like a storm on the verge of breaking. Elara and Joran exchanged a look, unspoken but heavy with meaning. Whatever came next, they would face it together. But the question lingered. How much of themselves would they lose in the fight against the shadows among the trees? And somewhere deep within the orchard, the spirit waited, patient and eternal, ready to claim what was owed. Night after night, Kaelen's struggle intensified. There were moments when his eyes cleared, glimpses of the warmth and protectiveness that Elara remembered so vividly. But these were fleeting, like stars swallowed by a gathering storm. At times he would speak in riddles, fragments of memories twisted into cryptic warnings that only deepened her confusion and fear. The roots run deep beneath the bones. The fruit is bitter, Elara, bitter and sweet. Elara clung to these moments desperately, but they slipped through her fingers like mist. Each day more of her own memories faded, sacrificed to the orchard's insatiable hunger. The edges of her identity blurred, and with them the certainty that she could save him. Joran remained her steadfast ally, his presence a reminder of the life she still had to protect. At the forge, his hands worked the glowing metal while his eyes never left her, steady and unwavering. "We'll find a way," he insisted one evening, voice rough with determination. "We have to." But even he could not deny the growing shadow that loomed over them all. The orchard's influence seeped beyond its boundaries, twisting memories and sowing fear like poison. The village's whispers became louder, the distrust more palpable. Elara could feel the walls closing in, not just around her, but around Kaelen, Joran, and the fragile hope they nurtured. One evening, as the wind carried the distant howls of restless spirits, Elara found herself drawn once again to the orchard's heart. The spirit's form shifted before her eyes, branches twisting into the semblance of a face, bone-white fruit pulsing like a heartbeat, and shadows curling like smoke. It spoke without words, a chorus of voices echoing in her mind, the cost of defiance, the inevitability of loss. Her hands clenched into fists, nails biting into her palms. The orchard was not just a place, it was a force, ancient and relentless, an eternal cycle she had dared to disrupt. The weight of her choices pressed down, heavier than any burden she had borne before. Yet, beneath the despair, a spark of fierce love remained. It was fragile, flickering like a candle in the wind, but it was enough. For Kaelen, for herself, for the hope that even in the deepest shadows, light could endure. The chapter closed on the edge of uncertainty, the orchard's shadows stretching ever outward. Elara's fight was far from over, and the cost of survival would demand more than she had ever imagined.
Chapter 9. Fragments of the Past. The cold light of the bone orchard seeped through the twisted branches, reaching Elara's skin like a whisper of frost. She sat beneath one of the ancient bone trees, its branches heavy with pale fruit glowing faintly in the dimness. Around her, shadows danced quietly, their movements a soft murmur against the eerie stillness of the place. Elara's fingers trembled as she tried to clutch at the edges of her memories, but they slipped away like mist caught in the wind. Her mind was a fractured mirror, shards of the past glinting briefly before dissolving into darkness. Faces blurred, names faded, and moments once vivid now felt distant and unreal. She closed her eyes, willing herself to remember Kaelen's laugh, the warmth of his hand in hers, the way he looked at her in the quiet mornings before dawn. But each recollection was like a thread unraveling, leaving her grasp empty and cold. A soft rustle beside her stirred the air, and Elara opened her eyes to see Mira materializing like a ghost born of moonlight. The guardian's silver hair shimmered softly, framing a face etched with ageless sorrow. Her eyes, pale and polished like bone, held a depth that transcended centuries. "The orchard does not give freely." Mira's voice was low and steady, carrying the weight of countless lifetimes. "Every memory you trade is a fragment of your soul. What you reclaim in Kaelen is balanced by what you lose in yourself." Elara swallowed, the lump in her throat thick and bitter. "I don't care," she whispered fiercely. "I would give everything to have him back, even if it means losing myself." Mira knelt beside her, the cold earth beneath them humming with quiet power. "I once made a pact much like yours," Mira began, her eyes distant, as if seeing a past long buried. "Long before you were born, I was mortal, a mother, a wife. I sought to undo death's finality for someone I loved, but the orchard demanded sacrifice, not just memories, but pieces of who you are. In the end, I became part of its eternal watch, bound to tend the orchard and guard its secrets." Elara's breath caught. "You gave up everything?" "Everything," Mira confirmed. "My past, my future, the hope of a normal life. I am both guardian and prisoner now." The truth settled over Elara like a shroud. She thought again of Kaelen, the man who had returned hollow-eyed and distant. His fragmented memories haunted her as much as her own. She felt a shiver ripple through her body, a cold wave of loss that stole the warmth from her bones. Images flickered in her mind. Kaelen's hands trembled as he reached for her, his voice breaking into riddles. Moments where recognition flared briefly before fading into shadows. Each glimpse was a cruel tease, a reminder of what she had brought back and what she might lose entirely. "I don't want to forget him," Elara breathed, "but I'm afraid I'm losing myself instead." Mira reached out, her touch like a whisper against Elara's cheek. "The orchard's price is not just for the dead. It is paid by the living who dare to defy nature's course. You must decide how far you will go." The wind stirred, carrying the faint scent of earth and bone, and the orchard seemed to breathe around them. Lost memories drifted like falling leaves caught in an endless autumn, fragile and fleeting. Elara felt the slow unraveling of her identity, the painful tug between hope and despair. The night deepened, and with it the weight of her choice. To hold on to Kaelen meant to surrender more of herself to the shadows. To let go meant a loneliness she could scarcely bear. Yet beneath the ache, a stubborn flame kindled, a resolve to face whatever came, even if it meant sacrifice. A distant cry echoed through the orchard, sharp and haunting. Elara's gaze lifted, eyes searching the darkness. The path ahead was uncertain, fraught with loss and impossible decisions. But she would walk it, step by trembling step, driven by love and the fragile hope of redemption. As Mira rose to her feet, and the first pale light of dawn brushed the horizon, Elara whispered a vow to the fading stars. She would not let the orchard claim her without a fight. Yet still the question lingered. How much of herself could she afford to lose before nothing remained? The orchard waited silently, its bone-white fruit glowing faintly beneath the waking sky, a silent witness to sorrow and sacrifice. And within its depths, the fragile threads of memory and identity continued to unravel, one fragment at a time. The morning brought no answers. Elara wandered the orchard's edge, the cold earth firm beneath her boots, the air thick with the scent of damp leaves and something faintly metallic, like the memory of blood long dried. She tried to recall her last conversation with Kaelen before the war, the warmth of his smile, the promises made in the flickering firelight. But the images blurred, slipping beyond reach. Joran's face flickered in her mind, steady and warm, a tether to the life she once knew. She reached out, but even he seemed distant now, a fading echo of a past she struggled to hold on to. When she returned to the heart of the orchard, Mira awaited her beneath a tree heavy with glowing fruit. The guardian's eyes held a quiet intensity. "You carry the weight of many lost souls," Mira said softly. "Their memories bleed into yours, and the orchard drinks deep." Elara nodded, swallowing the lump of despair. "What happens when there's nothing left, when I have no memories left to trade?" "Then you become part of the orchard's legacy," Mira replied. "A whisper in the wind, a shadow among the branches." The thought chilled Elara to her core. But beneath the fear was a flicker of determination. She would not become a ghost yet, not while even a single fragment of Kaelen's soul remained. She turned her gaze to the glowing fruit, the orchard's eerie bounty, and steeled herself for the trials to come. The cost of resurrection was rising, but so was her resolve. The orchard's silence was broken only by the soft rustle of leaves and the distant haunting cry of the lost. Elara's journey through grief and memory was far from over, and the true price had yet to be paid. With each step, Elara felt the weight of her fading self, the erosion of her past leaving a hollow ache behind. Yet in the depths of that ache, a stubborn ember of hope glowed faintly. She would face the cost of the orchard no matter what it demanded. For love, for Kaelen, for the fragments of a life worth remembering. But as the orchard whispered its mournful song, Elara knew the path ahead was a shadowed one, where sacrifice and sorrow intertwined like the twisted branches above, and the line between memory and oblivion blurred with every breath. The orchard waited, and so did fate.
Chapter 10. The Orchard's True Face. The air grew thick with a scent of earth and decay as Elara stepped deeper into the orchard's sacred heart. The world around her seemed to pulse with a strange life, the bone-white fruit glowing faintly like lanterns hung in the branches of the gnarled trees. Shadows twisted and writhed, alive with whispering voices that carried 1,000 lost memories, echoes of souls long since claimed by this place. At the center stood a colossal tree, ancient beyond reckoning. Its bark was cracked and twisted like the veins of time itself, and its branches curled upward like skeletal fingers clutching at the sky. The fruit it bore shimmered with an ethereal glow, casting a ghostly illumination on Elara's determined face.
She felt the weight of countless memories pressing down on her, as though the tree itself remembered every soul that had ever passed through its grasp. From the shadows, a presence began to coalesce, an entity both beautiful and terrifying, the orchard spirit. It was neither fully solid nor entirely spectral, a shifting form woven from twisting branches, glowing bone-white fruit, and whispering shadows that danced in the dim light. Its shape was ever-changing, sometimes resembling a great tree crowned with fruit, sometimes a twisting mass of roots and limbs, its eyes like hollow voids filled with the sorrow of centuries. Elara, it spoke, its voice a chorus of whispers and echoes. You have come far, clutching memories like fragile fruit, desperate to reclaim what was lost. But know this, the orchard is no mere garden. It is the cycle of death and remembrance, the keeper of souls and the price of defying the natural order. Elara's breath caught in her throat. She had heard the warnings, felt the creeping dread in her bones, but facing the orchard spirit was something entirely else. Her sharp green eyes locked onto the shifting form, searching for any trace of the Kaelen she loved. Beside her, a cool presence stirred. Mira stepped forward, her silver hair glowing softly in the spectral light, eyes like polished bone fixed on the spirit with resolute calm. The orchard is patient, Mira said, her voice steady yet burdened. It offers gifts, but every gift demands a price. We who serve it understand sacrifice. You must understand it too, Elara. The orchard spirit's tendrils of shadow reached out, curling protectively around a faint, flickering silhouette behind it. The hollow shape of Kaelen. His pale form was marked by faint scars that glowed with orchard magic, his eyes vacant pools of memory lost. He exists between worlds now, neither living nor dead, bound to the orchard's endless cycle. To reclaim him fully is to unravel the threads that bind soul and memory, a cost not measured in coin or kindness, but in the very essence of being. Elara's heart clenched painfully. She reached out, fingers trembling as she tried to touch the ghostly form of Kaelen, her voice breaking with desperation. "Kaelen, come back to me, please!" But the orchard's shadows thickened, swirling protectively, a silent warning. Your pact was made in grief and hope, but the price is yet to be paid. The memories you surrendered were but the beginning. To save him, you must be willing to lose yourself, your past, your identity, your very soul. Mira's gaze softened, but her words were firm. You stand on a precipice, Elara. To cross, you must choose what you are willing to sacrifice. The orchard hummed, alive with the weight of countless souls lost and reclaimed, their stories etched into the fruit and branches that surrounded her. Elara's chest tightened with grief and determination. She realized that the orchard was not merely a place of resurrection, but a battleground where love and loss waged a ceaseless war. "I will pay the price," she whispered, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions raging within. The orchard spirit's form pulsed, a mixture of sorrow and inevitability. It said, "Very well, but know this. Every choice erases a piece of what you are. The deeper your bargain, the more you lose to the shadows." As the spirit began to recede into the twisting branches, Elara felt a sharp ache, a memory slipping away, a fragment of her past dissolving like mist. She steadied herself, eyes burning with a fierce determination. The true nature of her pact was unveiled, and the road ahead was darker than she had imagined. Yet, even in that darkness, hope flickered. For love, she thought, was a force strong enough to challenge even the relentless cycle of death and memory. And so, with the orchard's true face revealed, Elara braced herself for the trials yet to come, knowing that the price she must pay would test the very limits of her humanity. But the story was far from over. The orchard held many secrets yet, and the spirit's claim on Kaelen's soul was only the beginning.
Chapter 11. Bonds torn and held. The night air was thick with the scent of damp earth and cold embers as Elara sat hunched over the cluttered wooden table in her cottage. The soft flicker of candlelight danced across the pages sprawled before her. Ancient manuscripts, brittle with age, their edges stained by time and countless hands. Joran leaned close, his brow furrowed, eyes scanning the cryptic runes and faded illustrations that promised knowledge about the Bone Orchard's deepest secrets. "There has to be a way," Elara murmured, voice low, almost a whisper, as though speaking louder might shatter the fragile hope she clung to. "I'm with you, Elara. We'll find it." Outside, the wind whispered through the village, carrying with it the distant, eerie glow of the orchard's bone-white fruit. Inside, the weight of the night pressed heavily on their shoulders. Elara's mind churned with every fragment of lore they uncovered, every warning from the elders, every spectral tale Mira had shared. The cost of tampering with death was steep and unyielding. Kaelen remained seated by the window, a shadow among shadows. His pale skin seemed to absorb the dying light of the day, his hollow eyes reflecting a world fractured and distant. Occasionally, he would murmur a phrase, an echo of a memory, half remembered and slipping away. Elara watched him, her heart clenched tight with a mix of love and dread. "Kaelen," she said softly, stepping closer, "do you remember the spring festival when we danced beneath the cherry blossoms?" His gaze flickered, a brief spark of recognition, but it was gone almost before it came. "Blossoms, falling," he repeated, voice cracked and uncertain. Tears pricked at the corners of Elara's eyes. "Hold on, please." The scars along his arms glowed faintly, pulsing with the orchard's unnatural light, a stark reminder of the price he had paid to return. He was no longer the man she had known. Something dark and restless stirred within him, threatening to consume what little remained of his true self. Mira's arrival was sudden, her presence like a gust of cold wind swirling through the room. Silver hair framed her ethereal face, eyes like polished bone meeting Elara's with unyielding clarity. "You seek to break what was forged in desperation, but every severed bond demands a sacrifice. What are you willing to lose, Elara?" Elara swallowed hard, the question cutting deeper than any blade. "Everything," she whispered. Mira nodded solemnly. "Then prepare yourself. The orchard does not yield its prisoners lightly."
Days bled into nights as Elara and Joran delved deeper into forbidden knowledge. They pieced together rituals and remedies, fragments of forgotten magic that might unravel the pact without erasing Kaelen's soul. Yet with every step forward, Elara felt her memories slipping away. Faces of friends, moments of joy, the warmth of laughter, all dissolving like mist at dawn. One evening, beneath a sky choked with stars, Elara and Joran sat outside the village, the orchard's ghostly glow flickering at the horizon. The silence between them was heavy, filled with unspoken fears. "I don't want you to lose yourself," Joran said finally, voice rough with emotion. "But I can't lose you either." Elara reached for his hand, the familiar weight anchoring her. "I'm scared," she admitted, "but I can't let go of him, not yet." "Then we fight," Joran replied firmly, "together." As the night deepened, Elara's resolve hardened, even as the shadows of the orchard crept closer. Her love for Kaelen was a tether, pulling her back from the brink. But the path ahead promised pain and sacrifice, unlike any she had known. The bonds she cherished were being torn, yet held fast by the fragile threads of hope and determination. And in the silent darkness, the orchard waited, patient, eternal, and hungry. The chapter ends on the precipice of a perilous choice, a delicate balance between saving a lost soul and preserving the self. Elara's journey is far from over, and the price of love remains yet to be fully revealed.
Chapter 12. Whispers of Letting Go. The bone-white light of the orchard fruit filtered softly through the twisted branches, casting long, eerie shadows across the ground. Elara sat cross-legged beneath one such tree, its gnarled limbs reaching out like skeletal fingers. The air was thick with the scent of earth and something faintly metallic, a reminder of the orchard's unnatural power. Mira's silver hair shimmered faintly in the dim glow, her eyes, like polished bone, fixed on Elara with an inscrutable expression. "You carry too much," Mira said quietly, voice weaving through the stillness like a gentle wind. "Grief can be a storm that uproots everything, but it can also be the soil where new growth begins. You must learn the difference." Elara bit her lip, her gaze falling to her hands, trembling slightly. "I don't know how to let go. Every memory I trade feels like losing a part of myself. My laughter, my touch, the way Kaelen looked at me. How can I accept a world without him?" Mira's gaze softened, but her tone remained firm. "Acceptance does not mean forgetting. It means making peace with what was and what will be. The orchard does not grant life without cost, and you have already paid far more than you know." The wind stirred, carrying with it faint whispers, fragments of voices lost in the orchard's depths. Elara's eyes flicked to the shadows, a cold shiver tracing her spine. The orchard was alive with memory and sorrow, a place where hope and despair entwined in a delicate dance. Later, as twilight deepened into night, Elara found herself at the village edge, where Joran waited. His familiar figure was hunched, worry etched deeply across his soot-streaked skin and warm brown eyes. "Elara," he began, voice low but urgent, "this path you walk, it's tearing you apart. The memories you're losing, they're not just stories, they're who you are. If you keep giving, soon there might be nothing left of you." She met his gaze, a flash of stubborn resolve ignited in her green eyes. "I have to do this, Joran. I can't live in this empty silence." Joran's hands clenched into fists. "But at what cost? You're fading away, Elara. And Kaelen, he's not the man you remember. The orchard's taking more than just memories. It's taking your soul." The weight of his words settled heavily between them. Elara's breath caught as she turned away, the village lights dim and distant behind her. She stepped back into the orchard's embrace, the whispering winds swirling around her like ghosts of the past. Alone among the towering trees, Elara wandered through shadowed paths where flickers of lost memories danced just beyond reach. The murmurs of the orchard teased her mind, snatches of laughter, a touch on her cheek, a whispered promise, all slipping away like mist. Her heart ached with a bittersweet hunger, torn between the warmth of the past and the cold reality of the present. Yet in the silence she found a strange comfort, an understanding that some things must be released to find peace. Stopping by a branch heavy with a single withered fruit, Elara reached out, fingers brushing its fragile skin. It was a stark reminder. The past was a delicate thing, beautiful but fleeting. Holding on too tightly would only cause it to break. She closed her eyes, the orchard's whispers fading into a soft lullaby. Somewhere deep within, a quiet voice urged her to choose, not between holding on or letting go, but between despair and hope. And as the first pale light of dawn crept across the horizon, Elara took a breath and stepped forward, ready to greet whatever shadows awaited her next.
Chapter 13. The Price of Resurrection. The orchard pulsed softly with a spectral light, the bone-white fruit hanging like fragile lanterns in the thickening dusk. Elara sat on the cold earth beside Kaelen, the faint rustle of whispering shadows weaving through the twisted branches around them. Her fingers trembled as she reached out, brushing a loose strand of dark hair from his pale forehead. His eyes, once vibrant with warmth and life, now held only hollow depths, faint scars of orchard magic glowing dimly beneath their surface. "Kaelen," she whispered, her voice barely carrying over the quiet hum of the orchard's breath. For a heartbeat, something flickered in his gaze, a flash of recognition, a shard of the man she loved. His lips parted, and he spoke a phrase from their past, a forgotten fragment of a memory she thought lost forever. But the moment slipped away like mist, and silence reclaimed the space between them. Kaelen's face grew distant again, the light in his eyes dimming as though swallowed by shadow. Elara's heart clenched painfully. This was the cost. The price of resurrection was not simply the exchange of memories. It was the erosion of everything that made them whole. Each stolen fragment of her past paid to the orchard was a piece of her soul fading into the void. And Kaelen's flickering lucidity became rarer, more precious, like the last dying embers of a fire. From the shadows emerged Mira, her ethereal form gliding silently through the branches. Her silver hair shimmered faintly beneath the bone-white fruit, and her eyes, cold and polished like bone, fixed on Elara with an unyielding intensity. "You must understand," Mira said softly, her voice a whisper that seemed to echo from the very roots of the orchard. "The pact you forged demands more than memories. It demands sacrifice, sacrifice of your very self. With each fragment you give, you unravel the thread of your identity. Soon there will be nothing left, but an echo, a hollow shell, drifting through the orchard's endless night." Elara's breath caught. "There must be another way," she pleaded, desperation sharpening her tone. Mira's gaze softened for a fleeting moment. "The orchard is neither cruel nor kind. It is the balance of life and death made manifest. To defy it is to court oblivion." Before Elara could respond, Joran's familiar, sturdy presence appeared at the edge of the clearing. His soot-streaked skin and warm brown eyes held a fierce worry, and he stepped forward, gripping Elara's arm with a strength that belied his gentle nature. "Elara," he said urgently, voice low beneath the weight of the orchard's stillness. "This path will consume you. The memories you lose are part of who you are. If you keep going, what will be left?" She looked away, her gaze drawn to a fragment of memory she held tightly, a delicate shard of their wedding day, the laughter and sunlight now slipping through her fingers like smoke. Tears pricked her eyes as the edges blurred and faded. "I don't know, but I can't let him go, not yet." Joran's grip tightened, his own fear mirrored in his eyes. "And if you lose yourself, what good is it? Who will you be without your memories?" Elara swallowed her rising despair, her resolve trembling like a leaf in a storm. The orchard's power was vast, insidious, and merciless. Every stolen memory left a void, every sacrifice a creeping shadow upon her soul. The man beside her was changing, slipping further beyond reach, and the cost of holding on to him grew heavier by the moment. The night deepened, the whispers of the orchard swirling like ghosts around them. Elara stood alone amidst the swirling mists, clutching the last fragile fragment of a memory, the warmth of Kaelen's hand in hers, a promise made beneath the fading sun. It was slipping away, dissolving like smoke into the cold air, and with it, a piece of herself. Her heart ached with the weight of loss and the bitter truth she could no longer deny. The price of resurrection was more than she had bargained for. It demanded not just memories, but the very essence of her being. And if she continued down this path, she risked becoming no more than a shadow, a whisper, lost among the orchard's endless night. Yet amidst the sorrow, a fragile spark of determination kindled within her. If the orchard demanded sacrifice, she would find a way to pay the price on her own terms. For Kaelen, for herself, for the love that endured beyond loss, she would face the darkness and the painful choices ahead. The orchard held its breath, watching, waiting, and Elara, torn between hope and despair, prepared to confront the true cost of the pact she had made. As the bone-white fruit glowed faintly overhead,
a voice whispered through the shadows, carrying a warning and a promise. Some debts could never be fully repaid, and some sacrifices would echo through eternity.
Chapter 14: Echoes of the Fallen. The Bone Orchard whispered around Elara like a mournful wind as she stepped cautiously into the clearing where the light bent strangely, filtered through the gnarled branches heavy with bone-white fruit. The air was thick with a silence that was almost alive, pressing against her chest with the weight of countless sorrows. Her sharp green eyes scanned the dim space, catching sight of figures wavering at the edge of vision, translucent, shimmering shapes whose forms flickered like candle flames caught in a draught. Elara's breath caught. These were the souls, the echoes of the fallen, who had traded their memories for a fragment of life, only to become trapped within the orchard's grasp. They drifted silently, faces etched with grief and longing, their hollow eyes reaching out as if to touch something just beyond their reach. A soft rustle of leaves stirred the ghosts like a chorus of sighs. One spirit, a young woman whose features were faint but unmistakably maternal, hovered closer. Her voice came like the wind through dead leaves, fragile and trembling. "I was a mother once, before the bargain took my memory of my child. I hoped to hold him again, but now I only remember the ache of forgetting." Elara's heart clenched painfully. The woman's story mirrored her own, the desperate hope and the cruel price. She stepped forward, reaching out, but her hand passed through the spirit like mist. "You're not alone," Elara said softly, voice thick with empathy. "I understand. I'm trying to bring someone back too." From the shadows, a shimmering figure emerged, more solid than the others. Mira, with her silver hair flowing like liquid moonlight and eyes like polished bone, came to stand beside Elara. Her presence was both comforting and formidable. "The orchard listens," Mira murmured, her tone grave, "and it grows restless. The spectral guardians have stirred, sensing the shift your actions have caused. They are no longer content to watch from the edges. Their vigilance has sharpened into aggression." Elara swallowed hard. The weight of Mira's warning settled over her like a shroud. The orchard was not merely a place of memories and magic. It was alive, a living entity with its own will and purpose. The pact she had made was unraveling threads she barely understood. Suddenly, the air thickened and the shadows deepened. From the darkness between the twisted branches, spectral guardians materialized, twisted, shadowy forms with glowing eyes that pierced the gloom. Their movements were jerky, unnatural, a haunting dance of menace and sorrow. The orchard seemed to pulse with their presence, a chilling intensity that pressed against Elara's very soul. Heart pounding, Elara stepped back, but her resolve did not waver. These guardians were the orchard's enforcers, the wardens of its balance. Their rising hostility was a sign that time was running out, that the cost of her bargain was becoming dangerously clear. The trapped souls around her seemed to lean in, their faces marked with silent pleas and unspoken regrets.
Elara felt the weight of their stories settle inside her, intertwining with her own grief and hope. She had to find a way to free them all, to break the cycle of loss, or risk becoming just another echo in this orchard of bones. "We must be careful," Mira said, her voice steady despite the growing tension. "The orchard's power is expanding, and with it, the shadows grow longer. But you are not without allies. Remember that." Elara nodded, drawing strength from Mira's presence and the fragile connection she felt with the spirits. The path ahead was fraught with peril, but turning back was no longer an option. The orchard's legacy was entwined with her own, and only by facing its darkest secrets could she hope to save Kaelen and herself. As the spectral guardians closed in, their glowing eyes fixed on her like cold stars, Elara steeled herself. The battle for memory and love and identity had reached a new, perilous stage. And in the hush of the orchard, where echoes of the fallen whispered on the wind, she took her first step forward into the unknown. The clearing remained bathed in an eerie luminescence, the bone-white fruit glowing softly like distant stars. The trapped souls lingered, their forms flickering with the fragile light of forgotten memories. Elara's mind swirled with their stories, tales of love lost, bargains made in desperation, and the cruel price of resurrection. She recalled the young mother's voice, a haunting melody of hope and despair, and wondered how many others shared her fate. Each spirit was a fragment of the orchard's vast tapestry, woven with threads of grief and longing. They were mirrors reflecting Elara's own struggle, shadows cast by the choices she had made. Mira's warnings echoed in her mind as the orchard's power grew restless. The spectral guardians, once distant watchers, now prowled closer, their presence a constant reminder of the fragile balance she threatened to shatter. The orchard spirit, that ancient warden of death and memory, was stirring, its patience wearing thin. Elara's hands trembled as she touched her temple, feeling the faint sting where memories had already begun to fade. The cost of her pact was becoming more tangible, more personal. With every lost fragment of her past, the line between who she was and who she might become blurred. But amidst the sorrow, a fierce determination burned within her. The echoes of the fallen were not just warnings, they were a call to action. To honor their stories, to break the cycle, she would have to confront the orchard's darkness head-on. The orchard shadows lengthened as night approached, wrapping the trees in a cloak of whispered secrets and unseen dangers. Elara took a deep breath, her resolve hardening like steel tempered in fire. The path ahead was uncertain, but she would walk it. For Kaelen, for the trapped souls, and for the fragile hope that love could endure even in the face of loss. And so, beneath the glowing fruit and watchful eyes of the spectral guardians, Elara stepped forward into the deepening gloom, ready to face the echoes of the fallen and the shadows that sought to claim them all. "You carry more than your own grief," Mira said softly, as they moved through the orchard's twisting paths. "Every memory lost, every soul trapped weighs upon you. But remember, even in darkness, there is the glimmer of light. Elara met Mira's gaze, her own eyes reflecting the orchard's faint glow. "Then I will find that light," she vowed, "no matter what I must sacrifice." The orchard whispered around them, a chorus of sorrow and hope intertwined. And in its heart, the battle for memory and life raged on. The chapter closes on Elara's determined face, framed by the haunting glow of the bone orchard, as spectral guardians close in, and the weight of countless lost souls presses upon her, a poignant reminder that the cost of resurrection is far greater than she ever imagined.